So I'm currently out with Total. We are down at Bishop's Bowl Fishery on the Mitre Lake. Very first time I've fished this lake, as it's had a big revamp. It got backfilled and then changed, and we thought we'd come down here and see if we could nick a fish, and sure enough managed to nick one just before dark last night. And I'm now going to talk you through the rig that I caught it on, which is none other than the Fluoro D-Rig. Let's have a little look at the Fluoro D-Rig then. It has to be one of the quickest and easiest rigs to tie, but it's also super effective. You can use it with a wafter, you can use it with a bottom bait, you can tip wafters with maggots, you can tip bits of foam with worms. So this is a real simple rig, really quick to tie, and you don't need a huge amount of components. To start off with, you're going to need a Fluoro link. So this is some of the Signet Fluoro link in £20, it's 0.40, and I find this one to be a really nice sort of diameter for when tying this rig. Add to that, I've got a size 4 wide gape. Now you can drop down to a 6. I'm using a 4 because it makes it a little bit easier for you guys to see while I'm tying the video. Add to that, you want a micro ring swivel, obviously to put onto the D. So I've got a little micro ring swivel. And then obviously when you're attaching baits to this, you want a bit of bait floss, a lighter, a bait, and then if you're going to use it in a quick chain system, an anti-tangle sleeve. So let's look at how to tie it. First thing I'm going to do is take my fluorocarbon link. So I'm going to cut about 1.5 foot. That should be enough. Take my scissors, give that a trim. What I'm going to do then is I'm just going to thread the fluoro link through the back end of the what I call the back end. So it's the point end of the eye of the hook. And I'm going to give myself about 2 inches sticking out. That's to allow me to thread it back through the eye to create the D. Once I've done that, make sure my link is along the shank of the hook. Then I'm going to wrap it. Now I normally wrap it 8 times. So 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 and 8. Then I thread the opposite end back through the eye. Just gently hold it, pulling it nice and slow so it doesn't uncoil, to tie a knotless knot. Once I've got to this stage, this is quite often where I'll stop and start adding them into my rig box. And the reason I do this is once you've got a bait attached, especially with something like foam and maggots, if you're catching a lot of fish, all you've simply got to do is cut the D, remove the micro ring swivel, thread it onto the hair end, pop it back through the eye of the hook and blob it, and you're back fishing again. Once I got to that stage, I simply get a micro ring swivel. I'm going to thread that onto what would be the hair. And then very simply take that tag end and I'm going to thread it back through the eye of the hook. Once I've done that, I'm going to create the D and I'm going to make it a little bit smaller than what I want it, because obviously it's very difficult to cut the tag end and blob it and get the exact size D. So I make it a little bit smaller than what I want it, and I just gauge when trimming the fluorocarbon, giving myself about an extra 3 or 4 mil extra to what I think needs to go back through the eye to create the D. Trim it off. Once I've trimmed it off, I'm going to get a lighter and very carefully I'm just going to blob, let it burn down about 2 or 3 mil, just blob it down so it's flat, pull it back through, and you can see there I've created the perfect little D. And that's pretty much it for tying the D-rig. It's such a simple, quick and easy rig to tie. So if you're catching on a lot of fish like this, it doesn't take long to retie rigs. Once I've done that, I'm going to add a bait. Now to add the bait, I use a little bit of floss. So I just take a length of floss, about 6 inches is enough. Once I've trimmed my floss, I'm just going to thread it through the small eye of the ring swivel and pull the 2 tags together. For this rig, I like to use like a wafter, dumbbell wafter, or even a boilie wafter. This is a boilie wafter, 14mm, and all I do is simply thread that onto my baiting needle, take hold of the 2 pieces of floss and pull them back through. Now at this point it can be quite difficult to pull the swivel into the bait, so what I do is I wrap that floss around my baiting needle several times so it keeps it nice and tight, pinch it with my fingers, and then I can pull that nice and firm till I get the micro ring swivel just up to the big eye like that, and you can see that my bait is sitting perfect on that little swivel. Once I've done that, I'm just going to trim the floss, leaving myself about 1/2 centimetre, and then I'm going to blob it. Simply take a lighter, burn the floss down. Once it hits the bait, just gently touch it with the edge of the lighter, which will give you a nice flat little area which will stop it pulling back through the bait. Next up, I'm going to use a quick chain system to attach it to a lead clip. Next up, I take an anti-tangle sleeve. I'll then take my fluorocarbon, thread the anti-tangle sleeve onto the fluorocarbon. And the reason I put that on first is because once you tie a knot in it, it can be quite difficult to get an anti-tangle sleeve over the knot. I'm then going to measure my rig. I'm going to set this one at 7, so I got up to 7 inches, like that. And then I'm going to fold the fluoro over and tie a very simple figure of 8 loop knot. So I create a knot, twist the knot once 180 degrees. Once I've twisted it 180 degrees, take a little latch needle through the loop and pull the main loop back through, moisten up the knot, and then just pull it down slightly. Next up, I'm going to get 2 puller tools. I'm going to put one in the main loop and one on the hook. I'm just going to take the tag end in my teeth, just give it a little pull to tighten that knot. Then I'm going to trim off the tag end. And then I'm going to use my 2 puller tools. Because fluorocarbon has a memory, if you just get your 2 puller tools and put a bit of tension on it, you'll feel the fluorocarbon stretch slightly. Just hold it there for a few seconds. When you let it go, it will be nice and straight. And then all I do is take my anti-tangle, pull it over the knot, and that's my rig ready to attach to a quick change system.